Rockies. Hello and welcome here on this Wednesday evening, January 8th, 2025, here on the Best of the West podcast here for Blake Street Banner. I'm your host, Skylar Timmons, joined here with my partner in crime. It's Kenneth Weber. Kenneth, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Good job nailing it on that first 2025 call out of the year. I definitely have written 24 on a few things already.
It's a very conscious thing. When we're writing over at Purple Row, we have to put in like the date and stuff, so I have to make sure I put that in correctly. So it's right at the top of my mind.
I always have like a 1 month buffer. It's honestly like almost 6 weeks. If it's March and I'm still putting 20, the previous year down, okay, I'm falling behind. But
Yeah.
I allow myself some grace at least through January.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you got to give yourself a little leeway, get warmed up into the year, but a lot of action happening here. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about here. We're joking, we're trying to think of points here in this offseason. Then a couple days before Wednesday, some news starts rolling in. So a lot of interesting stuff to talk about happening in the NL West. And I'll say, first off, breaking news: Jamie Carroll and Adam Ottavino of Rockies Legends on the front page of Baseball Reference back-to-back days. So that's about as much Rockies news is happening for them.
I mean, it is pretty exciting. And Jamie Carroll, he's a great unsung hero, a folklore hero of Rockies history too. So it's one thing. It's like Larry Walker, Todd Helton. Sure, everybody knows Larry Walker and Todd Helton, but let me tell you the story of Aaron Miles when you see him pop up.
So before we hop in, I was watching an old Rockies game the other day on YouTube, just randomly. There's a 2011 game. Kevin Millwood's on the mound for the Rockies.
Oh gosh,
like mid-August at Coors Field. They're playing the Dodgers, and folks, if you look at this Dodgers team in the middle of August, the most notable names was Matt Kemp and Andre Ethier, and then a whole lot of nobodies. But Aaron Miles and Jamie Carroll were both in that lineup. And Jamie Carroll was a Rockies killer in that series. But I think they finished third in the division that year, just barely ahead of the Rockies. And George Frazier, the late, great George Frazier, had a phrase. They were talking to Don Mattingly. And Mattingly said, quote, they because of their financial restrictions as the Dodgers and not being able to make as many moves as they wanted, they were forced to give a better look to some of the younger players on their team. And hearing that, like in the year 2025, after everything the Dodgers have done recently, it is wild. I was like, man, I miss those days.
Yeah, it's so far fetched, and it's funny because we were talking backstage before the show started, kind of about this period of Dodgers history as well. It's a completely different animal, and honestly, I feel like most people either forget it exists or, depending on how they feel about the Dodgers franchise, pretend it never happened, kind of thing. It's like there was a Matt Kemp MVP year in there where Ryan Braun unjustly got it. And otherwise, let's go back to Tommy Lasorda. We'll talk about those days. But otherwise, yeah, the rest wasn't there. It was tough times for the Dodgers, but you can see not only the change in philosophy, but they brought in like Andrew Friedman. That changed everything for the Dodgers because they became that hive mind with deep pockets where they used to just be a deep pocket team before that tried to outspend their problems, like a few teams still are today.
Yeah, they got the influx of like Magic Johnson and that ownership group that just continue to bankroll this team. And a nice segue here into, guess what, Gav? The Dodgers, surprisingly, they made yet another free agent signing, a notable one, another international signing coming over from the KBO. The Korea. It's hopefully I say this right. Hyeseong Kim. Close enough.
Sounds right. Sounds good to me.
I got to make sure it's differentiated from Ha-Seong Kim, who
Mm.
was with the Padres. But Hyeseong Kim signing with the Dodgers on a 3-year, roughly $12.5 million guaranteed. Escalators could take it up to $22 million. They've got to pay about $2 million to $3 million over two, or for the posting fee. So it's about a $15 million investment at the moment, guaranteed, or in total. And then it's got a couple of club options for 28 and 29. Good years over in the KBO, but now coming to the Dodgers, and it's trying to figure out what role is he going to play with the Dodgers, who already seem stacked across the board.
Yeah, and I think that we'll also be able to touch on some corresponding moves with the
Mm-hmm.
Dodgers, that shed some light at least to what their plans might be. Without having too much of a book report, ready for him, I at the very least look at this as a transaction that I have trust and faith that will turn out in a glass half full outcome, because it is the Dodgers, and I trust that they did do their homework and bring in somebody that could be an impactful big leaguer. I think looking at the Dodgers plan right now, and it's kind of fascinating the more you think about it. Um, I think at baseline, this is an acquisition for the Dodgers of a good utility infielder, spot starter, who also appears to have a little bit of versatility, but he has the tools to contribute to a winning team. Obviously, that's what the Dodgers start with first as an offensive producer. But I think there could be a floor of a Chris Taylor kind of guy coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But what we don't know, and maybe what the Dodgers are setting the table for, is this actually might be a starting big league infielder, middle infielder, especially for a team with playoff and title aspirations. So you expect an above average starter too. I think that's the way they're leaning of trying something,
Mm-hmm.
or trying it to start the season, but I'm not 100% yet. And the final part to this before I hand it back over, they have the ultimate band-aid in all of this equation
Mm-hmm.
that no other team has, and its name is Mookie Betts. And it's crazy
Yeah.
because you can put Mookie wherever you want, and you immediately have a great starter at that position, and he'll play pretty much anywhere. So he factors into this middle infield as well.
Yeah, no, coming over, he was a notable, and he's going to be 26, turning 26. Oh, they had a scrimmage, an exhibition against the Korean national team, I think last year or pretty recently, within the past year or so. And Dave Roberts, like, yeah, our scouts like that second baseman, and so
Mhm.
the Dodgers probably had that poker in the fire for a while, but they're getting a guy who's defensively pretty darn good. Won a Gold Glove four four times consecutively over in the KBO. Won it at shortstop in 21, and then he wins it at second base from 22 to 24. He's dabbled at third base. He's played a little bit of outfield before, but ultimately a very kind of the prototypical middle infielder. A guy who's really slick with the glove, pretty speedy on the base paths. Kenneth, he's in his 7 full seasons of his career, 20
Mhm.
bags a year at least. So a speedy boy on the bases and pretty slick with that glove. So that aspect of it, okay, that's where that utility can come in, that flexibility where, late in the game, Max Muncy, it's a tight game. We got to replace Max Muncy at the hot corner. We can throw in, somebody over there, and hopefully it can be Kim, who then can really boost them defensively. I think it's going to be the bat that's a little bit more a question of how will that translate to the big leagues.
Yeah, and I think Ha-Seong Kim, there's a bit of a template there with his
Mhm.
experience with the Padres and how they kind of eased him into more impact and a larger and larger role within the offense. And that Padres offense hasn't been an easy one to crack either, with multiple years during Kim's time. So I think that there is versatility there, and looking at Hyeseong Kim's numbers, he has been improving offensively each of the past 4 seasons too. Nobody is going to come out here and expect him to be a 30-30 threat right
Yeah.
away, but or ever really achieve something like that. But again, this comes back to this could be the floor of a good utility player that comes off the bench, gives you some reliability to at least reach pace while having premier skills of defensive value, and value scoring runs and making an impact on the base paths. There might be more upside, and that's what we're going to find out. And you also trust that the Dodgers could be a team to get that out of a player like this. But I think at the very least, that's what they're signing up for. And maybe it grows and and turns into an all-star like Kim did with the Padres, over his.
Yeah, no, it's maybe don't expect him to, like you said, go out and throw out 20 plus home runs. He hit a
Mhm.
career high 11 home runs in 24, but expect a lot of contact, a guy that can get on base. And for a Rocky, I wish it was the Rockies lineup, for a Dodgers lineup that already has so many weapons in that lineup, it's just another tool for Dave Roberts to plug in as he sees fit to help bolster that lineup and continue to set up the table for the Shohei Otanis, the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freemans, the Teoscar Hernandezes. Like no spot really feels safe in that Dodgers lineup, and more versatility with being able to have Hyeseong Kim to be able to plug in as he sees fit. Like you said, maybe he'll start at second base one day, he gets a start at shortstop. You can move him around kind of like a Chris Taylor was or a Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, just looking over the Dodgers depth chart. Who do you think gets more starts this year in the middle infield between Mookie Betts, Hyeseong Kim, Miguel Rojas, and Tommy Edman? Because they're all options, you
Mhm.
know? And some of these guys can shift into the outfield as well. Looking at Kim's numbers internationally, he does have outfield experience and will be capable there as well. So, again, I think that there is it's very easy to see the path of this being a successful acquisition at the very least for the Dodgers. And it's a pretty low risk, high reward. It's just we have no idea really how big that ceiling is going to be. But at the very least, they're probably adding another Tommy Edman like, and that's what keeps this Dodgers team so scary is the depth that they build behind the Freemans, the Betts, the
Mhm.
Teoscars, even who are, that's technically, I guess, an addition this offseason is bringing Teoscar back in. So it's a scary team, man, and this at the very least is just going to add more good depth to an already scary organization.
Yeah, they've kind of penned him as the super utility guy. And when they first acquired him, this is a good little transition here. When they first signed him, everybody's like, okay, what are you doing with him? Because you already have what's presumed to be a second baseman. You've already kind of alluded, oh, Gavin Lux is kind of be in that running for our second baseman. No, as soon as they signed Hyeseong Kim, they were actively shopping Gavin Lux, and they find a deal with the Cincinnati Reds, sending Lux over to Cincinnati for Mike Sirota, outfielder Mike Sirota, a third-round pick from the 2024 draft, and they have received the 37th overall pick, the competitive balance pick, or whatever pick in the 2025 draft for Gavin Lux. And this finally brings to the end of Gavin Lux, who really felt like he was heralded as the next top player at second base for the Dodgers. It just didn't really pan out for him.
I mean, really, he was supposed to be the shortstop of the future too.
Yeah, that too.
So this is a hard one because I wouldn't necessarily put Gavin Lux down as a bust or anything by those means, but I also wouldn't put him as a striking success with his time with the Dodgers. You know who Gavin Lux feels a lot like, and just to uh, make this sting with having this hit close to home is Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way it is, where it's like, yeah, this is a bona fide everyday big league regular. Is he the all-star? Is he the possible Hall of Fame talent that you thought you might have at the early days of him coming into the league and establishing himself? No, but it still became a useful, productive big leaguer, and I think that that's ultimately what Lux was. And I think there's also some unfortunate injury history that slowed down some momentum. And the Dodgers are a fascinating organization in the fact that prospect graduation is not only based on ability and how high of a ceiling maybe they think they have, but it's also who gets there first. Will
Mhm.
Smith is regarded as one of, at the very least, the five best catchers in baseball, if not the best. They also had somebody like Keibert Ruiz behind him. Dalton Rushing is still on his way through. The Dodgers have had plenty of good catching prospects. Smith's just happened to get there first. And then that's how they, turn around and use those guys as trade depth. But the point is, I think that Lux just kind of got lost in the mix a little bit with this team. And I
Hmm.
think that this is just a sensible baseball move if he got pushed out with these other acquisitions and time was running out on his team control. So you know what? Let's just push him along and start the clock with a new prospect. And that's what Sirota is.
Yeah, no, that comparison. Rogers, who's a third overall pick, gets non-tendered. Lux was a 20th overall pick, and then he gets traded for a third round pick and a 37th overall pick. No, that's really that significance. Like you're talking with the Dodgers, just the approach and the things they can do as an organization, where they gave him like 3 full seasons, really a fair shake of 3 full seasons.
Yeah.
Now, if you disregard 2019 and 2020, but really 2021 through 24 with injuries and then just performance overall, it's really not moving the needle in any sort of direction. And the Dodgers, who are constantly in that win now mode, they see an opportunity to upgrade. Let's go get Hyeseong Kim to fill a void that is also being battled out with Chris Taylor and Miguel Rojas. Guys are good defensive pieces. Lux just finds himself as the odd man out. And so, and like you said, the presence of Mookie Betts and a lot of their versatility allows them to do moves like this where they can, okay, we're going to check out this prospect. Okay, it's not working out. We're going to ship him out and get some stuff back and turn our focus over here. That's just who they are as the Dodgers, and they are very good at what they do.
Hmm. I mean, really, how paramount was Gavin Lux to LA's title success this year? But, where does he rank on that list? 21st overall
Yeah.
kind of thing? Like, this is somebody who's expendable, because of the position that the Dodgers put themselves in as a franchise.
Mhm.
I'm a little curious what this is from Cincinnati's perspective. Like, for the Dodgers, I at least get it. It didn't become what you wanted it to, but you're able to now move on from this player. You're still fine losing him at the positions he occupied, and now you get a new prospect that you get to kick the can down the road. We'll figure it out at
Mhm.
that time. Cincinnati, you have Matt McLean, you have Ellie De La Cruz, you have Noel V. Marte. Where you have Encarnacion Strand, you have a lot of infielders here. Is this an insurance policy for a guy like McLean? Is De La Cruz going to be shifted off? Maybe how does this fit for you for the Reds?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's either an insurance piece or it's just, I think Jim Bowden kind of alluded to it of, well, maybe look to see if they shop Lux around somewhere else immediately after receiving from the Dodgers.
Who
So,
does that? I mean, like, how often does that really happen,
yeah,
though?
when
Like,
you're not playing MLB The Show or out of the
yeah,
park
like,
baseball.
I get it, man, but, like, how often really does somebody stay, outside of the Rule 5 pick was made and then immediately these are predetermined trades. The one weird Mike Piazza baseball card that exists of him as a Marlin for a week, those trades rarely ever happen. So, clearly, Cincinnati probably has the intentions of starting the season with Gavin Lux on their
Mhm.
opening day roster. And so I'm kind of curious what they're shooting for more than what the Dodgers are doing, because it makes sense what the Dodgers are doing. And again, they also have the greatest insurance policy in the world named Mookie Betts, which means if they have any holes in their plans, that's where Mookie goes.
Yeah.
But for the Reds, how much, how much more imposing are they in the NL Central with Gavin Lux on their roster?
Yeah. Not very much so to speak. Just another nice, solid piece to have. Versatile. You can move him around a little bit. Uh, we'll see what Terry Francona, what old
Yeah.
Tito can do with his squad. And the Reds will be an interesting one to look at. But do you feel that this feels somewhat like I don't want to say a fleece, but kind of an overpay by Cincinnati, or is it kind of in line with what you'd expect for Lux?
Um, It's hard to gauge. In my head, the 37th overall pick is nothing to sneeze at. Hell, the 37th overall pick was so valuable that John Gray and Trevor Story got an extra half season as Rockies,
Hmm.
because, well, John Gray actually didn't even get the qualifying offer. I digress. Regardless, it seems like a fairly steep price, but again, Gavin Lux is a very talented player. So I'm curious what Cincinnati is expecting out of this transaction, I guess, more than anything. That's a better way of saying it than what the plan is. What are you expecting if you're Cincinnati to get with essentially a first round pick and a, legitimate big league prospect. I would think they're expecting 140 games, 25 home runs, a 100 or a 115 OPS plus kind of thing. Like I'm guessing that's what they're expecting. Do you think that that's what you're getting with Gavin Lux? Because I don't feel like he's really ever shown that. That's always been the ceiling that he was chasing with LA.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting just situation and trade overall. That just this weird snowball effect of Hyeseong Kim signs, and then it's just quickly this move comes together, and now he's moved on to the Reds and
Mhm.
NL
They pivoted
Central.
quickly. Yeah,
Wild place, wild place. Who knows what they're doing?
yeah. I think they'll be fine. At the end of the day, I really think the Dodgers will be okay.
Yeah, I think they'll make do.
Yeah, Reds, we'll see.
But yeah, interesting moves for the Dodgers who just keep plugging away
Mhm.
at their roster, shaping it. They're still in the hunt for Roki Sasaki, we can
Oh yeah,
assume. And so it's they do that, then what? What other move happens? Do they make a trade for something else? It's the we've repeated it
yeah.
time and time again. It's just the endless possibilities for the
There's
folks over
nothing the
in LA.
Dodgers there's nothing the Dodgers can't do, and that's kind of the wonderful and really the envious part about their position. They're almost always in a position where they can match nearly any package for a trade from another team, or they obviously have the deep pockets or the talent on the roster that not only they could offer, but then replace, with the versatility that they have. That if creativity is involved, they'll find a way to do it if they really want to. And Sasaki very well could. But there is another team in the division that really hoping they get Sasaki more than the Dodgers because man, the Padres need Sasaki. Like that seems to be their plan. Is like we will win the lottery and everything will be okay.
Hmm. Most definitely, and that's a good transition here into talking about the Padres, who are less in the player market and more just some stuff you'd find at your grandmother's house on a Tuesday afternoon on CBS with some weird soap opera acting. But it's a messy situation kind of brewing down there in San Diego. As everybody knows, their owner, Peter Seidler, passed away uh, after a battle with cancer, after really pushing hard, making major investments with the team, really helping build them into the contender they are right now in this situation. But unfortunately, then he passes away, and it's left a lot of questions of what are the Padres going to do? Can they continue what they've been doing, or is it going to be a drastic change all of a sudden? And when he passed away, it's a messy situation here. But if he passed away, the Seidler Trust was considered the owner of the team with his family. He's got his brothers and everything, and so whoever was in the president of the trust was basically in charge of the team. There was the brother, I believe, Robert. He was in charge. Then he had to resign because of just some other health stuff or other problems. So that passed on to the next brother, who then made his intentions that oldest brother John would be nominated to become the team's control person because of his history working in baseball. These guys are grandsons of a former late Dodgers owner. So, okay, pass it on to the brothers, get some continuity. But then, Kenneth, we get the wrinkle where Seidler's widow, Sheel Seidler, is now suing the other brothers to prevent John from becoming the control person, as she cites and accuses them of breaches of fiduciary duty and fraud while making it her case to be, or stating her case to be named control person of the Padres, saying that it was her late husband's wish and intention to make her the controller and owner of the Padres. Ugh,
That's a lot.
messy drama.
Yeah, no kidding. So, yeah, I mean, just the dirty laundry that's starting to come out about this situation makes it feel like it's a little premature
Hmm.
because there's just a lot that is still yet to come. It really seems, and so obviously, it's a tough situation with ownership or with an owner passing. However, it seemed like the Padres kind of had a plan in place or some actions there immediately after the passing. Like, it was he passed very young.
Mhm.
However, it seemed to be like that it was known that there were some health complications. Regardless, there's so much legally and financially that's going to come into this whole situation that it could be just a total powder keg, and we've seen this in a couple of other situations before. One thing in mind, or that came to mind at least, was the Dodgers.
Mhm.
About the Dodgers current ownership group. About the Magic Johnson being the face of the ownership organization and all these infinite wealth and blank checks that they're able to hand out. Well, that wasn't always the case, too. There was a time, especially with the early 2000s with the Los Angeles Dodgers, where this franchise was tied up in litigation through the McCourt family and the divorce for them. So it's it feels like we might be on the start of that roller coaster kind of going up
Mhm.
before, and it might take us a couple of years because that's what the Dodgers went through during that period too. So, um, I think the aggressive slam Diego party, Padres, that kind of passed with that owner at this time. So I think we're going to see a much more scaled back approach from the organization in the coming years because of this ownership situation hanging over their heads. It might be one of those that we're setting ourselves up for.
Yeah, where you can see it's gonna be kinda like that air that hangs over the organization where it's like, "Oh, we kinda know what's happening behind the scenes, and we can kinda see how it's affecting the organization as a whole in the dugout and on the field," and, you hope that the front office and behind the scenes ownership turmoil doesn't affect the players on the field, but it always finds a way of trickling down and affecting them and the
Mhm.
overall product and everything, so you hope it doesn't become a chaotic organization, but you also wouldn't be surprised if it just, like you said, it boils over or the powder keg finally blows.
The Denver Broncos with Pat Bowlen being the
Yeah.
longtime owner for decades and decades, when he, finally passed a couple of years ago, the family was set up to continue the legacy and the ownership group, and then that came into turmoil, and it finally exploded, and now the Walton Zone. But that took about 2 or 3 years to really play out too, and so
Yeah.
the Broncos were in a playoff stasis during that period. So it doesn't matter the sport. It doesn't matter the location of the organization necessarily. When you have these types of situations brewing, it kind of feels like it's hard to see it any other way than
Yeah.
San Diego having to go a different direction and it taking some long road to get there.
Yeah. No, his widow also, no, uh, insinuating or, basically making the claims too of, well, if John becomes control person, well, they're gonna probably eventually move the team
Oh God.
and whatnot. So
Yeah, and there's suing, there's lawsuits. I mean, if
yeah.
this could get even crazier legally. Who knows what else comes out? And if that becomes the case, then we're talking about like a Hollywood film happening before our eyes. So I don't know. I just think that there's a lot that we don't know yet.
Mhm.
But if I'm a Padres fan, hmm, man, I'm really hoping that we make the most out of the next couple of next year or two because I
You're
don't see the future very
you're
very
really
brightly.
hoping to get that notification from Jeff Passan that the Padres have signed Roki Sasaki.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. God, do they need Roki Sasaki? Because that's another weird thing about it is the Padres are in this perpetual weird now while trying to balance cutting, payroll. We've talked about it a few times with them, but Dylan Cease is out there. He is going to be a free agent after next season, I believe. So he has one more year of control on there, and they want to be able to get something in return for him if they're not going to be able to resign him. Michael King is in a similar situation too. So they have all of this big money pitching that's going to become more expensive, and they only have so much time left with it, and an all-star lineup that's built to win now. Man, could you use some cheap young talent that hasn't already been traded away because they traded pretty much all of it away. So with
Yeah.
the restrictions on Roki Sasaki's earning abilities, at least on his initial signing, that plays so advantageously into San Diego's position, because if you look at San Diego's rotation too, um, assuming Cease and King are still there, you can also throw Yu Darvish into the mix, and what, Waldrip, maybe? Like,
Yeah.
they need arms. So, yeah, Sasaki not only would be a huge filler for the, a point of need for their rotation, but also at a very affordable rate, which is probably more important than anything else, sadly, with San Diego's situation.
Yeah. The worst time to have extra drama behind the scenes when you're
Yeah.
trying to deal with all this other stuff.
But
With
you got to think that they are just driving a parade for every presentation that they do with Joel Wolf, and Sasaki. So, because they have to be putting on the greatest show of all time. It's like the old school college recruiting scandals, the
Mhm.
U days. You're gonna be like a 30 for 30 of Roki Sasaki's. Everybody trying to court Sasaki.
Yeah, yeah, but man, tough situation out in San Diego, and hopefully it gets resolved in a decent manner at some point.
This is still a good team.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like, there's who knows what the future holds with them, and you definitely worry that the foundation is shaky with the ownership, but you still are going out there with the team headlined by Machado, Cease, Tatis, Cronenworth. Like, this is a playoff team. This could be a title team. You add
yeah,
something like Sasaki, it's going to be big news. So, weird time to be a Padres fan, but still a fun time too.
yeah. No, if you're that in that clubhouse, maybe you're feeling that, and you're like, well, we got to make the most of this while we can before
Mhm.
foundation falls out from under us with this group.
Yeah, and the
Let's go out.
Rockies and meantime, Rockies are like, well, we'll see you in 7 years. We're
Yeah.
waiting for that other shoe to drop. That'll be fun.
Oh goodness.
Mhm.
Yes, a note from producer behind the scenes. On the bright side, 31-year-old Jake Cronenworth is still under contract for 6 more years, so don't have to
They,
worry about that.
yeah. Uh, at least he's not Xander Bogarts, because
Ugh.
I have a feeling they're a little bit more disgusted with that contract. But there's some money they would love to get rid of, and sure. But again, this is still a good team in San Diego. It's a
Yeah,
playoff team. So adding Sasaki does bolster a very good team and does change the landscape of the National League playoff picture too.
yeah, most definitely. But transitioning here, speaking of teams trying to become a playoff team and trying to be busy this offseason, we head out to the Bay to San Francisco, who they had kind of been linked to him a little bit. I remember seeing this rumor popping up a little bit that it could have been a possibility, but three-time Cy Young Award winner, former MVP, probably future Hall of Famer, Justin Verlander is
Maybe.
headed to San Francisco at 41 years old on a 1-year, $15 million deal, looking to recapture some magic after a rough, no, kind of injury plagued 2024 with Houston. Wasn't his best year. I think it was honestly like one of his worst years of his career, if
Since
not
his
the
rookie.
worst year of his career.
Yeah, since his rookie year.
Which, when you're saying that at 41 years old or so, it's not too shabby.
Yeah, right.
But he's returning for a 20th season, and this time he's heading to the Bay to join a rotation that's really headlined by Logan Webb. And then there's a lot of youngsters in there. Let's not forget Robbie Ray. But what do you think of the move of Verlander going to the Giants?
At the very least, this is a pitcher career rehab contract. San Francisco is just going to be a good place for Justin Verlander to pitch in, regardless of the talent of the Giants, the division, how competitive they are really as a ball club. This is a beneficial park for him as a pitcher. And I think that they've also shown that they work well with reclamation projects of a sort. Now,
Mhm.
you're talking about a guy who has 80 and a half career baseball reference war. So there's nothing to reclaim anymore. This guy is a first ballot slam dunk Hall of Famer, inner circle, but this is also a very highly effective pitcher at an advanced age for the past couple of seasons. However, when the other shoe drops with that, it drops quick. And so you're hoping this isn't the end of Verlander, and I think that this is a good place for you to get some number three-ish kind of production out of him, if not maybe more. But
Mhm.
um, it's not a huge needle mover for the Giants. It gives them a little extra depth. They could, take advantage of it, but I don't think Verlander's going out there and posting a 2.6 ERA and 22 wins next year. No, it's just a good depth move, then also good for Verlander's career.
Yeah, it's we were talking about it in our text text group chat where Randy Johnson, it's brought it up of Randy Johnson who finished his career as a Giant. He was 45 at the time though,
Hmm.
but Verlander's really made he's talked about how he wants to pitch until he's 45. Really give Jamie Moyer, legend, uh, a run for his money. Rockies will get Justin Verlander in about in 7 years.
Gosh. Yeah, he can go up on the wall of shame next to Kevin Millwood and Jamie Moyer and Sean Estes and just every
Roy
other
Oswalt.
yeah, every other poor husk that we've put into a Rockies uniform to end their career.
But
Um,
but I like Verlander going to the Giants too. It's a good pitcher's park, and like you said, they've got some of that black magic
yeah.
going of working with aging pitchers. They've done it for several years, and now it adds a nice, at least stable, reliable track record arm in that rotation to help support Logan Webb, and then a veteran mentor to work with the Jordan Wicks, the Bird Songs, a bunch of these other kids that are looking to spend time in that rotation. But it's really a huge caveat that Justin Verlander can stay healthy. And last season really wasn't able to. A couple of stints on the injured list with his neck issue, some other stuff, but he that could be chalked up of why he was roughed up last year. Really struggled and maybe came back a little too quickly trying to help Houston in their playoff run. But that's a lot of the Giants banking on a 41, 42-year-old staying really healthy to contribute in this rotation.
Yeah, it's that's the risky run. It's not like it was too long ago that he was successful though. That's the
Yeah.
nice part. Is you look at his 2023 campaign and it was fairly durable and obviously very effective. But this is a guy that's gonna be 42. It can help you. I mentioned earlier with Gavin Lux and the Dodgers conversation, how much are you banking on Gavin Lux to, carry you to a World Series? How important is he? That's what made him expendable. You can't be adding Justin Verlander and expecting that Justin Verlander is your missing piece, to become a World Series team. It's some good depth on there. It'd be hilarious if they sign Max Scherzer, but I think that the same archetype honestly kind of fits is where you can get some veteran depth and they'll combine for probably 200 innings, give or take. But um if you're expecting 180 innings out of Justin Verlander, a 42-year-old Justin Verlander, you're probably going to be sorely disappointed. So
Hmm.
it's fine depth and a good park for him.
Yeah, and I was looking to look up his ballpark splits and stuff, and he's only made one start in San Francisco when it was AT&T Park. He had one start, uh, 6 innings, allowed, I want to say 3 runs. So 3 earned runs, or 2 earned runs, 3 runs total in 6 innings of work at AT&T Park. And then there's also when he was with the Tigers playing in the World Series where he got
Hmm.
roughed up by the Giants. But yeah, I feel like it's a good little move for him. At least a nice competitive move by Buster Posey in the Giants front office, who are still just trying to do some more things.
Yeah, I think at the very least too that this is a good influence to have around the organization and the
Hmm.
development for everybody else. It's hard to say what you expect out of Justin Verlander, um, but I think at the very least too with the Giants, the way I look at this could be a sign and flip for them at the deadline. I think where their position is, because this is kind of a balance of old and young with the roster, and it's still in flux. And I think Posey is going to take a year or two to kind of shape this to how he wants it to look, while also bringing some young guys along the way. So maybe they make the most out of Verlander. They see where they're sitting around the trade deadline. Are they good enough to be a playoff team? Are they within striking distance? No. All right, then turn around and Verlander did well. You flip him over back to the AL, and he gives the Red Sox, the final month and a half. So I could see that being a thought process in this move as well, which would be pretty good by the Giants.
Yeah, you can just mostly expect him to throw strikes. Definitely diminished returns of what he is anymore. A little bit diminished stuff in total, but he still works around the zone.
Mhm.
I could see him a 4 ERA, maybe at the high end, but that's where I could kind of put him at. It's just a nice, solid, just average rotation piece.
Yeah, the strikeouts and the velocity is going to be the big thing because I think with the health he had last year, Justin Verlander, when he's had a few career resurgences or resurrections, and one of them was after 2014, where he was kind of sitting as a mid 90s guy, and then the velo ticked back up a touch, and he was able to adjust with him as a pitcher. He might also be at one of those cruxes where he needs to make another adjustment again. But he's shown he's at least been able to do it once, and there's recent success. This if you get 25 starts, let's say he plays a full season, you're in contention for the majority of the year as the Giants. You get 25 starts out of Justin Verlander, 130 innings, and a sub 3.75 ERA. Yeah, that's a pretty good 1 year, 15 mil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice move in
I
total.
can see it. Yeah, I can see it.
Excited to see how it pans out for him and the
Mhm.
Giants. But this begs the question, going back with the Dodgers here and the Giants, who do you think is more valuable to their team in 2025? Will it be Hyeseong Kim or Justin Verlander?
Verlander.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. I don't know how much of an impact Kim is going to have, but there's enough guys of Kim's type to take away playing time. Where Verlander, as long as his arm hasn't fallen off or there's not something else that's made the car break down, he's going to be getting the ball every 5 days.
Yeah.
So just more opportunity, I think, too.
There's a lot of Hyeseong Kims in the world. There's only
Yeah,
one Justin Verlander.
that's
And
true.
even if he's old and he's up there in a wheelchair throwing pitches, you'll still bet on him. Excited to see how it works out. But yeah, I think the Giants can get more value out of Verlander than the Dodgers can out of Kim. And in the grand scheme of just how they contribute to the team, Verlander is more valuable to the Giants.
Yeah. That doesn't we say it every single episode. I still doesn't mean the Giants are done.
Yeah.
Until Pete Alonso's name is off the board entirely, the Giants have to be in on that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. This is still a work in progress with this San Francisco team, but adding a Verlander objectively does make them better. You just don't know, is Verlander only going to make them better for like a month, or is it going to be, how good of a Verlander are they going to get just given the age? It's a question mark the same way Kim is, just for different reasons.
Yeah. Because the Giants were in on Corbin Burns before he signed with Arizona. This, all things considered, isn't a bad pivot of instead of the long-term deal, we'll just go for the short-term deal for a well-established talent who's still producing the 2023, like we said, 3.22 ERA that year at 40 years old in
Hmm.
27 starts between the Mets and Houston. Recent success still. We can chalk up 2024, hopefully just injury, and he'll be healthy, back to his old self, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, it's fine. And honestly, like I'm saying it only half kidding. Adding Max Scherzer in the same way with the same kind of frame of reference, and that you now walk in with your 4 or 5, you make the Mets look stupid for them planning on being the 1-2 a year ago at 5 times the cost of what you end up paying
Yeah.
these two guys. But it's really not a bad idea if they walk into this year with some veterans and say, hey, if one of these 3 guys that we're getting for the last spot in our rotation work out, great. It might be a little expensive for a year spending $35 million doing it, but it's only for 1 year. So that's not
Yeah.
the worst strategy if that's the way they go with it.
No, most definitely. But before we close out here, just wanted to touch on with Arizona Diamondbacks really quickly. We've talked about this again and again, but it's still just figuring out what comes next for the rotation after signing Corbin Burns, because there's got a lot of depth there, and it's a question of who gets traded anytime here before the start of the season. We touched on it in our last time getting together, but you've got Zac Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and Jordan Montgomery, free agents
Mhm.
after 2025. But you have Eduardo Rodriguez in that lineup, Brandon Pfaadt, Ryan Nelson. There's traded away Slade Ciccone. What are we doing here? Does
Mhm.
anybody in this group, do they feel that urgency of maybe some of these free agent guys, a Merrill Kelly, Zac Gallen? Do they get moved before the season, or are we just going to roll with this 7-man deep group and just see how spring training plays out?
I would be surprised if they're really pushing to make a move just based off of the number of arms they have.
Mhm.
Um, I think if you're looking at some of these expiring deals, Merrill Kelly had a big drop off from his production last year compared to every other year. Since he returned back to the States. And you'd be selling low on him and a Jordan Montgomery, and to an extent, a Zac Gallen, who kind of missed about, I think it was 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks or so last year. So with Kelly and Montgomery, especially, look, the elephant in the room in all this is they want to move Jordan Montgomery. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
take Jordan Montgomery's contract. So unless there's a bad money swap out there that they end up finding, the chances are good and probable that they walk into the season with 7 guys deep. Injuries happen, so that's the advantage of having more depth, especially in your starting rotation, a la the Dodgers do that every year with like 19
Mhm.
different 1 year contracts. But also, you would have some luxury with a guy like Ryan Nelson and Brandon Pfaadt, where you could utilize them as bullpen pieces or exercise their options. So you're still focusing on their development while, kind of keeping them as rotation options or in the mix and breaking that glass in case of an emergency. So it is
Mhm.
easily the most sensible path is walk into the season with this, using some extra depth, but most likely they're just going to, beg and moan until they get Jordan Montgomery's contract
Yeah.
off the books.
Yeah, because those, like you said, those guys that have options, and you could use one of them as a long reliever, you know,
Mhm.
uh, use them as bullpen pieces or just keep that depth. No, it feels like in spring training, it would be between Ryan Nelson and Brandon Pfaadt. They're kind of battling out for that, one of those final spots maybe, or just a role on the team, and the other one heads down to AAA to just get extended regular starting to build out that depth. And so it doesn't feel like they have to do something. They would love to move Montgomery, but if they can't, just roll with him and just see where you go
Mhm.
start of the season. And then, by mid, late June into July, where you're at in the standings. And if it's not working out with some of these guys, or Eduardo Rodriguez is still struggling, Jordan Montgomery's not back to what he was doing before you signed him, or Zac Gallen, Merrill Kelly, any of these guys, you can kind of reassess there and start moving around some names.
Yeah, I mean, you added the best pitcher on the market in Corbin Burns. Well
Yeah.
done. I mean, like that's the good starting point. Now you are objectively a better team and pitching staff because of it. However, there are questions, and last year Gallen, Kelly, Montgomery, and Rodriguez all missed some significant time in their own right. Some of them almost missed like an entire year, like Rodriguez. So, they've set themselves up where on paper they could have this veteran 5-man rotation. And think that it's going to be fine. But all 4 of these guys missed time before. Now you have at least 1, 2, 3 guys, you young guys that you can call up as depth. That's a perfectly fine plan, and I think a very good spot that Arizona's put themselves in. Now stop, I don't know, belittling Jordan Montgomery and maybe like try to bolster and be like, hey man, you remember when you helped the Rangers win a World Series? Like we believe that guy's still there actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of like bad dog, which is
Yeah.
how they've been the whole time.
Don't be smacking him with the rolled up newspaper, but actually
Yeah,
like nurture the player.
yeah.
Help him
So
get better instead of like, oh, signing you was a mistake.
yeah, it's a suggestion. but that's one way they could go. But Arizona's in pretty good shape, and yeah, they're going to be an interesting team this year. If they could just treat the first half like they've treated the second half the last 2 years, this could be a playoff team. This could be a team that could challenge LA for the division if they play their cards right.
Yeah, most definitely. But good stuff. But that'll do it here for the end of another episode of Best of the West. Appreciate you tuning in and following along with our little show here. You can find us over with Blake Street Banner. Be sure to subscribe over on YouTube. Also, they show this up on Twitch, so
Oh yeah,
cool stuff. We don't have the Twitch lighting and the weird purple colors lighting
not yet.
behind us. Not yet.
Not yet. That's the Patreon.
But and all your favorite podcast platforms. But Kenneth, where can the folks find you?
I'm over at Twitter on KW1988 and over at Purple Row.
There we go. Find me over on Twitter at sideline_crowd and at Blue Sky at stimmons13.bsky.social and over at purpleroad.com, writing articles. Find me over doing stuff with Every Rocky Ever and Rocky Mountain Rooftop as well. A lot of podcasts in my life because I got nothing else going on. This is good stuff.
Good podcast.
We have fun here. But until next time, I'm Kenneth. I'm not Kenneth. I'm Skyler. I'm Skyler. That's Kenneth.
I'm Skyler. That's Kenneth. Yeah, we got this.
And this has been Best of the West. And remember, the best is yet to come.